Okay, so we're going to talk about inspiration on the spiritual path tonight. Part of what I'm going to do tonight is share some ideas and thoughts with you and some conceptualization about just inspiration and what it is. And the other half of what I'm going to do is we're going to have like a spiritual pep rally, which was already started really by the great kirtan tonight and the children. But I'd like to take that just a little bit further. So this cartoon says, Lassie, get help. And Lassie goes and gets help, but obviously in the wrong way. And sometimes what happens to us on the spiritual path, which really is not any different than our life path, if you think about it, it's really one and the same. So when I say spiritual path, I really mean life path also. We've got to include that. We have all sorts of zigging and zagging that goes on in our lives. We have ups and downs, and we have inspired times, and we flatline other times. That's just really what the spiritual path is like. Sometimes we just hit that desert and we feel very uninspired, and it's not very much fun. And one time, I was talking with Sri Gurudev. This was maybe 25 years ago or so. I was doing some work with Sri Gurudev, and so I was up at his house, and I was having a time, this little zig or zag, whatever I was in, that I wasn't feeling very inspired in my spiritual practices. So after we did the work and such, Gurudev would always ask me, how was I? What's going on? How are things going? And I was telling him that I just wasn't feeling very inspired. And I was expecting maybe that he would do this, like, touch the top of my head. I would see bells and whistles. And I just thought maybe, had my fingers crossed. And, but he got this funny look on his face and kind of like a little bit of a grin. And he tilted his head to the side and he said, He said, well, what is it you're looking for? And I said, well, I want to know God. And he said, okay. He said, well, God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. And of course, he had said that a million times, so I already sort of had that in my mind. I knew that. But then he said something that was really interesting that I hadn't heard him say before. And he said, Mala, he said, if the sun is shining all the time and you pull down the blind, he said, what is God supposed to do? And I sort of didn't like that answer because it wasn't the answer I was looking for. It wasn't the answer I wanted. I wanted him to, feel sorry for me and, oh, yes, we'll do something to fix this and all of those kinds of things. But he stayed with that concept that it was my responsibility to dig myself out of that flatlined and desert or zig or zag place that I was in. At the time, that's kind of not, again, what I wanted to hear. However, at the end of the conversation, he did give me a big, big, huge hug. And if you've ever had a hug from Gurudev, you know that somehow whatever zig or zag your mind is in at that time completely dissolves and goes away. It's like it never was there in the first place. When you get that infusion of love from the divine universe, from the guru, from someone very special, it really melts away those zigging and zagging moments that we have. And we reset, which is so wonderful. So the spiritual process, the spiritual path is really like a car trip across the country. There are times that we have to pull over and we have to get a tune-up or we have to fill up with gas. We have a flat tire and we have to get the flat tire fixed. On our spiritual path, I think it is so important, instead of being reactive and getting that flat tire and going, I've got a flat tire, plan for it. Plan for our inspiration. know what inspires us. I think that is so important to really think about that. When I was having lunch today with some of my spiritual sisters, we went around the table and I said, what inspires you in life? What makes you feel excited about life, charged up, happy, inspired on your spiritual path again? And everyone told little tidbits of what inspired them. And it was wonderful to hear that. So what I'd like to do is let's just start over here, and 3 people raise your hand and say what inspires you in life and on your spiritual path. Who wants to do that? Go ahead.
My children.
Your children. That's wonderful. How could they not? That is so wonderful. Who else? Yes.
Nature.
Nature. Absolutely. Yes. Anybody else over here want to share? Sita, how about, or Jotima, yeah.
Swimming in Lotus Lake.
Oh, that's great. Jotima is my swimming partner at the Lotus Lake. She always calls me, do you want to go swimming today? That's wonderful. How about over here? Some people just raise your hand and say something that inspires you. I'm sorry? Love. Exactly. Yes. Amma, do you want to share?
Well, obviously, what I'm going to say is what inspires me is the appreciation for the magnificent privilege of life through the spirit of Swami Satchitananda, who revealed that to me.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, she said, can you say it one more time? The spirit of the magnificent life that Sri Gurudev revealed to her. Did I say that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Beautiful. So when we're in that zig and zag moment, we're dealing with our spaghetti minds. The mind is like a bowl of spaghetti that just doesn't know how to unravel itself well. And this spaghetti mind can get us into so much trouble and it takes us places that we don't want to go, and it tells us things that we don't want to hear, and it really derails our process so much of the time, and we get really stressed out during these times, and it really makes life very, very difficult. So, again, I think it's so important that we be proactive in thinking about when I get derailed, what is it that I'm going to do? What is going to make the difference in my life to turn this spaghetti mind into something that's a little more moving forward and getting on the road trip, getting back in your car and moving forward in our process. So when the spaghetti mind takes over us and says that we're not inspired and says that everything is horrible and that there is no God and what is it I'm doing and whatever the spaghetti mind says, what we're doing is we're moving into constriction instead of expansion. We're tightening instead of lightening. We're being reactive instead of proactive. We're tilting into pain instead of pleasure and ease. And we're in that threat mode instead of a safety mode. And I think one concept that I would like to leave you with tonight is the idea of resiliency. Resiliency is the idea that whatever adversity we are dealing with, we have the capacity to rebound in a fairly decent time frame, and that we don't prolong that capacity to rebound. So emotional resiliency is so important. It's really the lifeline back to inspiration. And cognitive resiliency, what are you going to say to yourself to rebound instead of staying like in a revenge place for 6 months or years, or staying in fear or greed or jealousy, or whatever the spaghetti mind is doing that derails us and we don't feel as inspired. Again, cognitively, emotionally, resiliency is such an important concept to get us back on track, get us back in the car, heading down the road trip of life. So, would you tell me, please, which way do I go from here? And that depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. And this is my cat, Bindi, who is so inspiring to me. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I'm not sure, because everybody who meets Bindi falls in love with Bindi. Bindi is more like a dog than a cat, and he is so good at communicating what his needs are and what he wants. Like, he will sit in the hallway right in front of where the bathroom is and wait for me to go by there, and he will look up at me and go, meaning, Mom, please come in while I jump up on the toilet seat. The lid is down. That's like his little throne. And he wants me to brush him. And brush him, and brush him, and brush him. So Bindi is so amazing because he just is so present. He knows how to communicate. He knows what to do when he's tired, when he's not hungry. And this is pretty amazing to me. Like, literally, when I could have the most favorite food in the world out for Bindi, and he will not take one crumb extra if he has already eaten. He just flat out won't do it. Now, my other cat will, but Bindi won't. Bindi is just in that space where he's like this perfect yogi. When he gets up, he stretches, he eats when he's hungry, and he doesn't when he's not. I mean, the list is endless. I mean, he's just like this amazing yogi. And I find tremendous inspiration from Bindi. I really do. He's just this really lovely cat. Now, some people drink from the fountain of knowledge and others just gargle. So tonight, I really want to invite you to think about what inspires you, and to really be proactive with it, and really have that in our mind as we hit these zigs and zags in life. So the word inspiration means to give rise to arouse, to awaken, to ignite, to excite, motivate, encourage, influence, energize, galvanize, incite, fire, spark, stimulate. We've got to gather our energy in terms of being inspired. And we have to ignite that energy in our heart space and in our minds in order for that car that we're in, driving through life, to really move forward. We don't want that car to break down on the side of the road, and then we're uninspired, sitting in the middle of the desert with nothing to do. So, some people mention nature and so on. This is just one little small list of things that I think can be really inspiring. Nature, animals, art, music, things, humor, books, people. And where I want to land tonight is around people. Excuse me. This is one formula: to watch and observe others. I love to go to the library and get 6 or 7 books out, autobiographies or biographies of any number of people. I've probably read tons of books on politicians or entertainers or business people. I mean, I love to read about people and find out how they've navigated life and what got them through life, what got them from the zig to the zag, or from the down to the up, or the twist or the turn, and what motivated them, what did it for them, how did they do it, and what was their formula. Yesterday, we had some people from UVA, the University of Virginia, come here from the Contemplative Sciences Department, and we hosted them here for lunch and a tour and so on. And one of the program directors, this amazing woman, and again, this is just me, inside of me, observing the world and observing people, which is what I love to do. I love to be inspired and watch what people do and respect that, feel inspired by it, maybe even emulate it. So yesterday at lunch, this beautiful woman was sitting there, And it was during the silent period. She was sitting up really straight, and she would take her fork and take a bite of food and put her fork back down and chew her food. And then she would pick her fork up again and take a bite of food, and she'd put her fork down again. The entire time during lunch, that's what she did. Now, mind you, she was Thich Nhat Hanh, one of Thich Nhat Hanh's personal assistants, and lived in an ashram for 8 years and was also a monk. So certainly, I'm sure she learned that in the ashram. But for me, just being there at lunch with our guests, I felt really inspired. And I felt inspired looking across the table. There was Shiva, and Karunananda was at the table, and some other people. And just felt really inspired that, and this sounds like so small and like it's nothing, but I think these are ways that we get inspired by observing people. So all of those people that I mentioned had these really small bowls of food. And I'm thinking, wow, well, they must not be hungry today. And then I'm looking at my plate and I go, gosh, I took a lot of food. I wonder, maybe I took too much food. Am I that hungry? Yes, I'm hungry. But why aren't they hungry? So you know how the spaghetti mind goes through these little machinations? And so anyway, something as simple and, in the grand scope of the world is rather meaningless, was inspiring to me to tweak and think about, wait a second, do I really need to have that much food on my plate? Am I really that hungry? You see? So just these small things can inspire us on life's path, on the spiritual path. So if we look around today, just if you would, indulge me for like a minute, look around the room and find something or somebody, the pictures on the wall, the people around you, the way things are set up, the colors of the room. What inspires you? Let's just take a minute, look at the people around you, look at the room, and find something that speaks to you. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get a drink of water. Hold on. So I really would love to give a shout out to some of the unbelievably beautiful souls here at Yogaville. I see people like Mataji, who without hesitation, when somebody needs a hug or someone goes up and speaks to her, she lights up. She smiles, she hugs them, she's present, she's available. How inspiring is that? Like, it never fails. People like Vidyananda. Vidyananda has the best posture of anyone in the world. Seriously, have you ever seen Vidyananda walk? She never slouches, ever. She's like this, and I've never told these people this, but secretly in my mind, I'm inspired by them. My beautiful mother is here, Amma Kid. Amma and I go way, way back. And through all these years, Amma has inspired me around what kind of lipstick to wear, my makeup, my hair, my clothes, and relationships, my work situation, professional things, and most important, because I've had a lot of zigging and zagging and, like all of us, you run into like a bump in the road, and Amma never fails to spiritually inspire me over and over and over and over and over and over again. Her faith never, and I do mean never, wavers, ever. She is so steady on the path, it's like all she has to do is walk into a room and you'll see Yogaville, all the people in Yogaville, Amma's here, Amma's here. She's that kind of a light. She's that kind of an inspiration. So I just really want to say to all of you, the world is full of inspiration everywhere. You see people like Sita, unbelievably devoted and dedicated, working in the teaching academy day and night, taking care of people. I mean, it's really amazing. You see people like Shakti behind the scenes. Raise your hand, Shakti. Behind the scenes, here's Shakti, so inspiring. Like, she knows someone needs help or needs money. Shakti's the first in line. Secretly, here, take, here's a check for this or that. I mean, it's like, I could go, the list is endless. I could go on and on about how inspiring people are here at Yogaville, but the truth is people are inspiring everywhere. And so my point that I want to make to all of you is we have to decide that in our minds. We have to decide we want to be inspired and look for it in the world and be able to really embrace that and not feel jealous or not competitive with people, but what can people offer us to inspire us when we're zigging and zagging? So if we see something negative, which happens, right? I mean, we see that in the world, just interacting with people. I had this weird experience that one of the scholars in the field of neuroscience and yoga, huge scholar, just loved his work, loved his research. He also works at my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and I was really excited to meet him. And he was at the University of Virginia a couple years ago, and I was really excited. I'm like, oh my God, he's here, he's going to be here. I can't wait to see him and hear what he has to say. I've read all his research and all sorts of things. And I don't know if he was in a bad mood that day. I'm not really sure. But he was kind of a little abrupt and, I don't know, just a little aloof, a little abrupt. And I thought to myself, gosh, that's a good lesson in how not to be. In really not. So it doesn't matter whether it's negative. It doesn't matter if it's positive. We have lessons we can learn. Even when something's negative, it teaches us how not to be. And that really struck me because it's something I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to forget to not do that to people that might come up to me after a talk and want to ask a question or something, So that was really important. But if you see something positive, again, I think it's so important. Take it in, feel inspired, and repeat what we've observed. So I want to tell you a story about can you raise your hand if you've heard of Diana Nyad? Does that name sound familiar to a few people? Amazing woman. She is literally, I'm not exaggerating, she's one of the top athletes in the entire world. No matter what athlete you know of that has excelled in his or her sport, believe me, Diana Nyad excels all those and tops all of those athletes. She is a long-distance ocean swimmer, and she set many, many records swimming between some islands in the Bahamas, around the entire island of Manhattan, and then she decided in 1978 to swim from Cuba to the U.S. She would be the first person to do it. It's one of the most treacherous areas of swimming that you can do because of the currents and the eddies and the weather patterns between Cuba and the U.S. Very, very difficult situation. So in 1978, she swam about 79 miles, and she had to abort it because this massive eddy just swept her into the Gulf of Mexico. So she couldn't do it. Now, let me just back up for just a second and tell you that attempting this is extremely challenging. 2 years or more of preparation, where she would get up at 2 o'clock every morning. She'd have to eat between 9 and 12,000 calories a day just to keep up with the 15 to 18 hours straight that she was swimming every single day, starting at 3 o'clock in the morning. Year after year, month after month, she did this. She attempted it again in 1978. She failed, and then she did not swim one stroke for 33 more years. Yeah, 33 more years until 2011, when she geared up to try it again. And there were lots of issues and problems. There's box jellyfish, which are absolutely lethal. They can just shut down your respiratory system. There's sharks. There's all sorts of predators in the ocean, not to mention 20 to 30-foot swells, not to mention how do you eat after you're in the water, swimming nonstop, because you can't hold on to anything. That's not allowed. Swimming nonstop for, 20, 30, 40, 45, 50 hours. It's very difficult, and you're taking in salt water, you're vomiting, you're getting delirious. So many, I'm just covering the slightest little tip of the iceberg in terms of the problems and issues that a long-distance ocean swimmer has to face. She failed after 12 hours, 37 miles, after having an asthma attack. 28 hours she was in. She tried again in September of 2011. She went 82 miles nonstop. She was slowed by jellyfish stings, and then they called it off after 44 hours in the ocean. She tried again in 2012. She went 72 hours, and a prolonged lightning and storms forced her out of the water. 4 attempts and 4 failures. So what did she do? She realized that all of us suffer heartache, all of us suffer difficulties in our lives, and if you say to yourself, find a way, you'll make it through. When our spaghetti mind gets us into trouble, we have to follow this same dictate, find a way. So what did she do? She found a way. And in 2013, she was the first person ever, and it's not like it hadn't been attempted by both men and women the world over. She found a way. She swam 110 miles from Cuba to the U.S. in 52 hours, 54 minutes, and 18 minutes. Amazing, amazing. And this was her when she started when she first got out of the water. No one could touch her the entire 111 miles. She couldn't hold on to the boat. No one could touch her, anything. And she had to walk up on land in order for it to be considered successful. So again, these are some of the pictures of her when she completed it in 2013. She was bitten by box jellyfish, which again are lethal. She had, the movement of her arm, her bathing suit had scraped her skin, so she had saltwater wounds on her body. I mean, many different things were going on. But she found a way. So how inspiring is that? It's not like we want to do this. And you can even question, well, why did she even do it? Those things don't matter. To me, what matters is that she had a challenge in front of her and she found a way. When we have a spiritual challenge in front of us, we have to find a way. And that's the bottom line. We have to find a way out of our spaghetti mind and into something that moves us forward. So what she says is that it's important in life to find people who inspire you. And that's what I'm all about, is really, figuring out who are my mentors, who inspires me, and really embracing that. So Diana also said, the spirit is larger than the body. The body is pathetic compared to what we have inside of us. So she made it to the other shore. She was successful after 4 failures, epic failures. And just so you know also that when she gears up to do these, it costs millions of dollars to get the medical boats, the weather boats, the people, the staff. She had 35 people crossing in boats with her to protect her and figure out all the weather patterns. And, because those eddies it's again, one of the most treacherous crossings. It can take her out to the Atlantic Ocean or back into the Gulf of Mexico. So she made it to the other shore. So here's the question: what shore do you want to get to? And that's what Sri Gurudev asked me, or said to me. He said, if you want God, and the sun is shining all the time, and you have the blind closed, what is God supposed to do? So what I had to figure out, I had to pause and figure out, what shore did I want to get to? What was I really saying in saying that I wasn't inspired with my practices anymore? What was I really saying to Gurudev? And that's what I had to reconcile with, and that's what I had to figure out. So wherever you want to go, it requires that you bring passion, willpower, and sankalpa. Sankalpa is intention. What is your intention on your spiritual path? What do you want from life? Because whatever it is that you define and what you figure out that you want, you've got to bring passion and willpower, and that's the formula to your spiritual success and for your spiritual inspiration. Passion has to be coupled with willpower, and willpower has to be coupled with passion. So it's important in life, like I said, to find people who inspire you. If you can't fly, Martin Luther King says, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. So we have to straighten out the spaghetti that's all gunged up in the bowl. We have to straighten out the spaghetti. It's you to you. I mean, that's the bottom line. This is me to me, you to you in terms of our spiritual path. But where do we find inspiration? Where do we, get that energizing process going again? Nelson Mandela, one of my heroes, and I've read several of his autobiographies, and I would recommend that if you haven't read them, oh my God, you need to read them. What an amazing, inspiring man. He says there's no easy walk to freedom anywhere, and many of us will have to pass through the valley of the shadow of death again and again before we reach the mountaintop of our desires. 28 years he was held in prison as a political prisoner. The boredom, the tedium, what he had to do to face his own mind and rework the spaghetti in his mind to make it passable, make the boredom, the pain, the suffering manageable, year after year after year after year. That's why I read these autobiographies. Wow, how do people overcome these adversities? I want to learn it. I want to learn the formulas. So he also says the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. So when the spaghetti mind takes you, you get a flat tire, it takes you somewhere you don't want to go, we have to learn what it means to overcome the adversity of our own thoughts, the adversity of our own emotional upheaval, and we have to develop resiliency. So what do you want from life? That's an important question. You have to know what you want in order to want what you know. Intellect and feelings go together, cognition and experience goes together. So I always tell my clients who come to see me in my private practice that the path of healing, the intellect only takes you 50% of the way. And this is really important, by the way, 50% of the way. And then you reach a door, you're standing at the door. The intellect has taken you 50% of the way in terms of your own healing. And what takes you the rest of the way is to drop into the experience. That's what takes us. That's the key that opens the door. that heads us toward enlightenment. We have to get out of the head and into the heart, and that's what that means. We can no longer use the intellect at a certain point on the spiritual path, and that's the formula that I think is really important. We have to drop into the heart, or it's not going to work. So yoga and neuroscience, it so works together. Like if you don't believe in God and that's not something that's of interest to you, you're agnostic or you're atheist, you can still work at experiencing peace in your life. And we can still rewire our neural pathways. We can still format a way of working with the brain where the amygdala is shrinking. The amygdala is the threat center in the brain. We don't want it flaring because that's not helping on the spiritual path. So you learn to rewire the brain. You learn to lay down new neural pathways of positivity. And then when you need it, you've built the highway. You see? So when your mind changes, your brain changes. When neurons fire together, they wire together. What flows through your mind sculpts the brain. So in neuroscience, they are talking now about sankalpa, intention. Mindfulness, intentional mindfulness, lays down new neural pathways in the brain toward positivity, toward the heart opening, toward compassion, toward peacefulness. So if God doesn't quite speak to you, if that's just not something you're interested in, at least maybe I would think you're interested in contentment, happiness, or peace. And we can go for that. So the same principles apply around that. I'm going to skip over some of this stuff. John Lennon said, "When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment. I told them they didn't understand life." Smart 5-year-old. So some ideas real quick. We have to set small goals. I love New Year's because I love setting goals. I like that kind of challenge. But what I realized that, like everybody else, come May, June, or July, the goal had petered away. So what I do now is I set 30-day goals starting January 1st. And no matter what, I don't violate the commitment to that goal. So for example, this last January, my goal for 30 days was to say the Gayatri mantra when I first woke up, like before I even did anything, before I got out of bed, anything at all, I'm laying in bed, I start the Gayatri mantra a certain amount of times. So I did that for a whole month, and February 1st comes, and I ask myself, do I want to do that again, or do I want to pick a new goal? That's something small and manageable. So I do 30-day goals. And guess what? It works. There's success there. And that's what lays down the new neural pathways in the brain, so that when we need that boost, when we need that endorphin release or serotonin or that oxytocin cuddle hormone to activate, it's those neural pathways are getting laid down. So it becomes easier and easier the more we stay on this path. So the other thing, find a purpose partner. Set up goals with a spiritual friend. The goals keep you inspired and successful. Gratitude. Every yoga class that I teach, at the end of the class, we do a gratitude moment. So we've done the Yoga Nidra, blah, blah, blah. We sit up and we do meditation for a few minutes, and then we bring the hands together in prayer fashion, bowing the head toward the heart. We have a gratitude moment about something positive in your life or something that you're grateful for. So acknowledging, bringing the mind into that kind of connection. So find something that you're grateful for, even if it has to be, I'm grateful that I had food to eat today. Because sometimes the spaghetti mind will not want you to be grateful for anything. It's like just taking you over the cliff, right? I'm sure everyone can identify with that. So find one thing to be grateful for. So the other thing is steadiness in your sadhana. Read inspiring books, and then, of course, observe, look around you. What do you see? I want to give you another formula. I call these I used to say the 3 B's, but then I added more B's to it. So the formula is that we need to tune into the body. And so I'd like you to take you through this, if that's okay. Do you mind doing like a 1 minute kind of, 2 minute kind of connection inward? And I'll tell you what the 3 B's are. I'll just lead you through it. Is that all right? Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, just take a moment, sit up straight, close your eyes. And the first B is we need to connect with the body. So we want to feel the feet on the floor, the legs on the chair, and just settle in to body awareness. And allow the mind to just drop in to that energy field of the body. And now at will, signal the body to relax, just at will. Allow the nervous system to spread the signal through the body that the body relaxes. Now we're going to go to the second B, which is the breath. So bring your attention to the tip of the nose. Feel the sensation of air as you inhale right at the tip of the nose. It should feel a tiny bit cool. It should feel warm as you exhale. So go ahead and take a deep breath. Fill the bottom, middle, and upper lungs. Inhale all the way to the top of the lungs. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. Slow, prolonged exhalation. Take a couple more deep breaths and just know that when you inhale all the way to the top of the lungs, a neurotransmitter called bradykinin is released that tells the parasympathetic nervous system to activate, and it relaxes you. And then let the breath return to normal, and we'll move into the brain. Imagine being fully present right in your brain, and everything is settling down, focusing the brain and the mind. There's no need to do anything right now, so the brain can just simply relax and be present. So we just signal the brain, settle, relax. Nothing important going on. We can just be in the present moment. So now we move in to be love. We move into the heart. And we activate the energy in every cell of your heart. And we start feeling, dropping into it, feeling the sensation of love starting to pulsate in the heart. Feel, imagine the light, the divine light. Imagine that there's a portal in the heart center to the divine. And the opening of the portal happens when you surrender, drop in, and are fully present. Allow the portal to open. Allow your real self to emerge and be present to you. Consciousness merging with consciousness. The next B is to bring it, burst out. Take that love from the heart, and like a tapestry across our entire world, imagine the entire world surrounded in a beautiful blanket of loving energy, and that all of nature, animals, and mostly the human heart is touched by this beautiful blanket of rain, pouring into all of nature, animals, humans. And then we come back gently and slowly to the heart. And we begin to know and understand the truth of the saints and sages and what they're saying to us. That all the answers truly are right there. And taking a deep breath and gently open your eyes, coming back. So our spaghetti mind says either an opportunity is nowhere, and the spaghetti mind takes us twists and turns down roads and paths and avenues and dirt roads we don't want to go down, or the opportunity is now here. So it's how we look at a word or a situation or our spaghetti mind that determines our inspiration in life. So it's either nowhere or it's now here. And if all our efforts fall flat, just know that your spiritual guides are with you 24/7. And I want to tell you a story that is so deep, powerful, and meaningful. And this story happened maybe 30 years ago when I was still living in the Chicago area. And I was pulling out of my driveway one morning, just going to do some errands, and this thought came into my mind that said, "You're going to get into a car accident." And I was talking to this thought, and I said, "No, I'm not," and kept driving down the road. Again and again, "You're going to get into a car accident." "No, I'm not. This is silly. I'm just doing some errands." So I pull up on this 4-lane highway, and I'm in the inside lane, and the speed limit was 55, and a lot of traffic because it was a Saturday morning. All of a sudden, this plumbing truck pulls off the interstate and merges, but instead of merging into his lane, he literally cut right in front of me, going 25 miles an hour, and the speed limit was 55. I slammed on my brakes as hard as I could. My car was fishtailing all over the road. All these little miracles happened. I don't know how my car didn't go into oncoming traffic, have a head-on. I don't know how the cars behind me didn't hit me. But what happened is my car, some kind of energy took my car and moved it went that way. And then what happened is I flew over a 30-foot embankment. So I'm up in the air in my car. This all happened in like 5 seconds of time. And I'm in my car, in the air over this 30-foot embankment. And the only word that came to my mind was the word God. That was it. And as soon as that word pulsated through my mind, just this powerful energy surrounded me and pulsated through me, in me, around me, supported the car. I don't know how my car didn't roll. I don't know how it didn't crash straight down. I don't know. I don't know anything. All I know is that my car hit the ground. It broke the back axle of my car, slid down another 20, 30, 40 feet, and there wasn't a scratch on my body. Not one scratch. You see? So if we lose our footing and our spaghetti mind gets us into lots of trouble, our spiritual guides are always going to be there for us. Always. Always, always, always. Because, we humans, we get into pickles quite a bit. And Spirit's not going to interfere except when it sees, she's not listening to me. I told her she was going to get into a car accident. And then the love of God and the divine Spirit comes forth and protects us and helps us and inspires us again and again and again. Do we have like a minute to listen to Mira's song, Water My Soul? Okay. All right. So if you get a chance to listen to Mira Gear's song, Water My Soul, so inspiring. So, so inspiring. So embrace that music that really speaks to your heart, to break open the heart and have it be something that's so sacred. So one of the things they asked me to do is, if you are interested in future programs, we're doing a program on using mindfulness, yoga, and neuroscience for healing and so on, but you can look in the program guide. But they always want people always ask, so they want to say, here are some programs that are going to be done if you're interested in following this a little further. So I just want to say what a joy it was to share some of these thoughts with you tonight. So thank you so, so much, and stay inspired.